All right, I have started my third and final scarf in this series, and this time I am using not only the burgundy yarn as weft, but a completely different treadling pattern. So I want to quickly walk through what I did. This time taping 2 sheets of paper together to be wider than my weaving width worked much better than trying to work with a piece of paper that was too narrow. It was much easier to do the hem stitching. It was much easier to get the paper in. It was much easier to beat against this paper. So as usual, I wove a few picks of plain weave and then I did my hem stitching. I prepped my cash register tape measurer on the I marked it and measured and marked it rather, which makes, more sense to measure twice and cut once. And now I've started weaving. So a set of scarves like this is a great opportunity to play with design. And if this is something that interests you, I strongly encourage you to think about doing projects in multiples. Now, each of these scarves is just over 6 feet long, which can be a long length to work with. If you really want to see pattern development and how different treadlings or different weft colors or textures or whatever play out, try dish towels. Try a series of dish towels. There are lots and lots and lots of things you can do on a simple dish towel that make them look like cousins as opposed to identical twins. That can be an awful lot of fun. And they're generally about 28 inches long, 30 inches long, as opposed to 74. So this time, a reminder, on my first scarf, where I used the turmeric weft, I did block A for a 10-inch section, which is a really long section, and then I did BAB in little tiny chunks about 3/4 inch long, and then I would switch to block B for 10 inches. So I had long swatches of each of these two block patterns, and then the three in between them would switch up the pattern. On scarf 2, where the weft was the cherry color, I did ABA 3 little blocks again, and then did B block for 10 inches, and then ABA and B block again for, now I see I kind of did that wrong. I was supposed to do 6 repeats of the short blocks in between. But again, it doesn't matter. The designer is not going to come after me and go, oh my gosh, you didn't do what I was imagining. But those long stretches of color, I could just go. I didn't have to worry about counting. And the tiny stretches were 3 repeats I could actually count up to. Now that I'm using the burgundy weft, I am switching every 10 repeats of block A, and then block B, and then block A, and then block B. And I do have to pay attention. So what I have already discovered is on this first one, I went a little too long because I lost count in the middle. So my new trick, also a 10 repeat, a 10 pattern repeat, so 40 picks, is about 1.5 inches when I count correctly. And that is a good time to advance my warp. So if I advance my warp every time I change to the next block pattern, I should have far fewer problems with broken warp ends. So now my trick, because honestly 10 is kind of high for me to keep track of things, because it's 40 rows, what I do is 1, and then very loudly say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and now I advance my warp. So I found that saying it out loud makes it easier for me to keep track. This is kind of like the trick you might use if, say, you're a knitter or a crocheter and you're knitting in a group setting and somebody is talking to you right as you're trying to count stitches or rows or whatever. I used to use that trick to warn a significant other that I was counting and he shouldn't be talking to me right at that moment. It never worked, but it was a nice effort to try that. And now I've advanced my warp, and now I go on and do the same thing again. So on this particular treadling, I'm not going to be able to zone out the way I did on the 10-inch swaths, but it's still going to go really fast. You can see that that took no time at all, a couple of minutes to do a 10-inch repeat, and that is, or a 10 repeat, 10 repeats of a 4-row pattern. So I will probably weave this scarf in shorter bursts of time, maybe an hour at a time, and then take a break and do something else, which is actually good to get up and move around anyway. But this is what the fourth treadling looks like. So when I've got all the scarves off the loom, I will make a video showing how each of the 3 scarves looks very different just based on its color interaction, and how breaking up the twill pattern has an effect on the overall look of the thing. But that's for another time. That's going to come later. I just want to say one more quick word about why I chose hem stitching over other potential weft protection means. These are scarves. They won't have a right or wrong side. They need to be double-sided. So in this case, I do not want to do I'm not going to make a hem, for instance, and I want to have a fringe. So hem stitching there's no better weft protection. And I could do fancier hem stitches. There are all kinds. There are complete books on how you can do different edge finishes with hem stitching or fancy patterns, fancy lace patterns. It's crazy. If I were doing something like a runner that would be hemmed, and a runner, because it's probably going to be washed more frequently than, say, a scarf, because it's on a table and people spill stuff on it. Fringes often don't work well on projects that are going to be laundered frequently. So something like napkins or kitchen towels or table runners or placemats, you probably don't want to put a fringe on. Rugs, it's anybody's guess, but a hemmed finish is probably going to last longer through repeated washings. If I'm going to do a hem, then I can still hem stitch, but I generally prefer leaving a marker, weaving a pick of a contrasting yarn, and on my sewing machine using a zigzag stitch to do a row of stitching on each side of that marker, which is my cutting line, because you won't see the zigzag stitching once it's folded in under for the hem. But again, there are lots and lots of options, and you should think about how much the item will be laundered, what to do to the fringe. I'm going to twist this fringe, and I'll show you that process too when I get this all off the loom. And before I wet finish, there are millions of options, but some work better in some applications than others. It's just the nature of the beast. But anyway, this is my third and final scarf, and I have really enjoyed this kit very much. It's been a pleasure.